My name is Claire Anderson. I'm 28 years old. 2 years ago, I sat in a courtroom while my former therapist, Dr. Rachel Kim, testified about why my parents had really forced me to stop seeing her. For 3 years, from age 19 to 22, my parents had insisted I quit therapy because we can't afford it anymore, and therapy was a luxury we don't need. But Dr. Kim told the judge a different story. The Andersons didn't want their daughter to continue therapy because she was beginning to recognize their psychological abuse patterns. Dr. Kim testified, holding up 3 years of session notes. Claire was developing healthy boundaries, questioning the family dynamics, and building the confidence to resist manipulation. They terminated her therapy not to save money, but to maintain control. The prosecutor pulled up financial records on the screen. Is it accurate that during the same 3-year period when the Andersons claimed they couldn't afford Claire's $120 weekly therapy sessions, they spent $118,000 on their son's various activities, private coaching, and equipment? Yes, Dr. Kim confirmed. They could afford therapy. They chose not to because effective therapy was threatening their control over Claire. My mother stood up in the courtroom. That's not true. We were trying to help her. She was becoming distant, difficult. She was becoming healthy, Dr. Kim said firmly. And you couldn't manipulate someone who was learning to recognize manipulation. But what my parents didn't know was that Dr. Kim had been documenting everything. Not just our therapy sessions, but every time my parents called her to complain about my attitude changes. Every demand that she stop encouraging Claire to be selfish. Every threat to pull me from therapy if she didn't fix Claire's defiance. And when I finally broke free at 25 and sued for emotional abuse and financial exploitation, those records became evidence in a landmark case about parental interference with mental health treatment. Before I tell you what happened when the jury heard those recordings of my parents demanding my therapist make me more compliant, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from and what time is it there? I love connecting with all of you. Now, let me take you back to where my mental health struggle and my parents' control really began. Growing up in suburban Seattle, I learned early that showing emotions, having needs, or expressing distress was seen as weakness and manipulation rather than normal human experience. My family. Dad, a successful real estate developer making $300,000 plus annually. Mom, who'd been a nurse but quit to manage the family. My brother Tyler, 3 years younger, athletic and popular and allowed to express every emotion freely. And me, the sensitive older daughter, the one told to stop being dramatic whenever I showed feelings. Tyler got validated. I got told to toughen up. When I was 14, my best friend died in a car accident. I was devastated. I cried constantly, had nightmares, couldn't focus in school. My parents' response? You need to move on. Crying won't bring her back. You're being self-indulgent. I'm grieving. You're wallowing. Other people deal with loss without falling apart. You need to be stronger. I internalized that. I tried to stop crying, stop feeling, stop showing any sign of emotional struggle. It didn't work. The grief turned into depression. By 16, I was having anxiety attacks, intrusive thoughts, overwhelming sadness. I told my parents I thought I needed help, maybe therapy or counseling or something. Dad's response: therapy is for people with real problems. You're just going through normal teenage emotions. You'll grow out of it. I feel like I'm drowning. That's dramatic language. You're fine. You have a roof over your head, food, a good school. People with actual problems don't have those things. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. I suffered through 2 more years before my school counselor, Mrs. Patricia Lopez, noticed. She pulled me aside after I'd had a panic attack in class. Claire, have you thought about seeing a therapist? What you're experiencing sounds like anxiety and depression. My parents say therapy is for people with real problems. Mrs. Lopez's expression hardened. Claire, what you're experiencing is a real problem. Would they let me talk to them about getting you help? She called my parents. They were furious that she'd overstepped, but they agreed to let me see a therapist, just to prove there's nothing wrong with you. That's how I met Dr. Rachel Kim. Dr. Kim was warm, patient, and the first adult who'd ever validated my feelings. In our first session, I cried for 45 minutes straight, years of suppressed grief and anxiety pouring out. "There's nothing wrong with crying," she said gently. "Emotions aren't weaknesses. They're information. What you're feeling is valid." I started seeing her weekly, $120 per session, covered by my parents' insurance with a $30 copay. The difference was immediate. I learned coping strategies for anxiety. I processed my friend's death properly. I started understanding that my emotions weren't dramatic or manipulative. They were normal human responses to real experiences. I also started recognizing that my family dynamics were unhealthy. "When you express sadness, how do your parents respond?" Dr. Kim asked. "They tell me I'm being dramatic, that I need to toughen up." "And when Tyler expresses sadness?" I paused. "They comfort him. They ask what's wrong. They try to help." "Do you notice the different standard?" I'd never consciously noticed it before, but she was right. Tyler could cry, yell, express frustration, and my parents would accommodate him. I couldn't show any negative emotion without being told I was weak or manipulative. Dr. Kim taught me about emotional validation, healthy boundaries, and recognizing patterns of dismissal and control. I started applying those lessons at home. When my parents told me to stop being dramatic, I said, "My feelings are valid. I'm allowed to be sad." When they demanded I skip an important event to babysit Tyler, I said, "No, I have plans. Tyler can find another babysitter." When they criticized my every choice, I said, "I'm making decisions that feel right for me." My parents hated it. They called it talking back and being difficult. After about 6 months of therapy, my mother called Dr. Kim. "Claire has changed," Mom said. "She's defiant. She questions everything. She's not the sweet girl she used to be." Dr. Kim later told me about this call. "I explained that you're developing healthy self-esteem and boundaries. Your mother said that wasn't what they wanted. She wanted you to be respectful and compliant." The calls continued. My parents complained that therapy was making Claire selfish and turning her against family. Dr. Kim explained patient confidentiality. She couldn't discuss session content. But my parents didn't care about what we discussed. They cared that I was changing in ways they couldn't control. After a year of therapy, my father called Dr. Kim directly. "If you don't stop encouraging Claire's defiance, we're pulling her from therapy." "Mr. Anderson, I'm not encouraging defiance. I'm helping Claire develop healthy emotional regulation and boundaries." "She doesn't need boundaries from her family. She needs to respect us." "Respect and compliance aren't the same thing." "Fix this. Make her compliant again, or we stop paying for sessions." Dr. Kim documented all of it. Every call, every demand, every threat. At 19, right as I started college, my parents called a family meeting. "We can't afford your therapy anymore," Dad announced. "It's too expensive. You need to stop seeing Dr. Kim." "But it's helping." "You've been in therapy for a year. If it was going to help, you'd be fixed by now. Clearly, it's not working." Therapy isn't about being fixed. It's about processing emotions and developing healthy coping. "It's a waste of money. We're done paying for it. It's $120 a week. You spend more than that on Tyler's baseball equipment." "Tyler's baseball is an investment in his future. Your therapy is just expensive complaining sessions. You're done." I was devastated. Therapy had been the only place I felt heard and validated. I tried to continue seeing Dr. Kim by paying out of pocket, but I was a full-time student working part-time. I couldn't afford $120 weekly. I had 3 final sessions with Dr. Kim, using money I'd saved for textbooks. "I don't want to stop," I told her, crying. "I know, and I want you to know, what your parents are doing is called therapeutic interference. They're terminating your mental health care not because they can't afford it, but because effective therapy threatens their control over you. She gave me resources, hotlines, sliding scale therapists, self-help books, crisis numbers. If you ever need documentation of what we worked on, or if you need my testimony about your parents' interference, I'll be here. I'm keeping meticulous records. I didn't understand why she said that. I just knew I was losing the one person who'd ever validated my mental health struggles. Without therapy, I spiraled. My anxiety came back. Depression deepened. I felt lost and alone. My parents noticed but didn't care. See? Therapy didn't fix you. You're still dramatic. Meanwhile, Tyler's expenses continued. New baseball equipment, $2,400. Private coaching, $8,000 annually. Travel team fees, $12,000 annually. Tournament trips, $6,000 annually. They spent over $28,000 per year on Tyler's baseball, but they couldn't afford $120 weekly, $6,240 annually, for my mental health care. I struggled through college. I had panic attacks before exams. I isolated myself socially. I barely graduated, then stumbled into a job I hated. By 25, I was suicidal. Not actively planning, but thinking about it constantly. Feeling like life wasn't worth living. I called a crisis hotline. The counselor talked me through the immediate danger, and then said something that changed everything. Have you considered that your family might be the source of your mental health struggles, not just your response to them? That question unlocked something. I started researching emotional abuse, family scapegoating, therapeutic interference. I found articles about parents who sabotage their children's therapy because healthy children are harder to control. I realized my parents hadn't stopped my therapy to save money. They'd stopped it because I was getting better, and better meant less controllable. I got back into therapy with a new therapist who took sliding scale payments. Dr. Michael Santos helped me see the full pattern of abuse and manipulation. Your parents systematically undermined your mental health, he said. They dismissed your grief, denied you help, then terminated effective treatment when you started developing independence. That's psychological abuse. He suggested I contact Dr. Kim to get my old records. I called her. She remembered me immediately. Claire, I've thought about you so often. How are you? I told her everything. The continued struggle, the suicidal thoughts, the realization about my parents. I kept all your records, she said, including every call from your parents, every demand that I make you compliant, every threat to terminate therapy. I documented everything because I suspected you'd need it someday. Need it for what? Whatever you decide to do. If you want to pursue legal action for the psychological harm they caused, I have 3 years of evidence. I met with a lawyer specializing in emotional abuse cases, Jennifer Park. She reviewed Dr. Kim's records, session notes, parental contact logs, documented interference. This is unusual, Jennifer said. Most emotional abuse cases don't have this level of documentation. Dr. Kim created a comprehensive record of your parents sabotaging your mental health treatment. Can I sue them for that? Yes, for emotional abuse, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and interference with medical care. In Washington state, therapeutic interference is recognized as a form of abuse. Over 6 months, we built a case. Dr. Kim provided her records. Dr. Santos provided current assessment of my mental health and how parental abuse had contributed to my struggles. We pulled my parents' financial records showing they'd spent $118,000 on Tyler during the same 3 years they claimed they couldn't afford my $6,240 annual therapy. The case went to court. My parents were shocked I'd actually sued them. "This is ridiculous," Dad said at a preliminary hearing. "We're her parents. We were making financial decisions for the family." Jennifer presented the evidence. The documented calls where they demanded Dr. Kim make me compliant. The financial records showing Tyler's expenses. The expert testimony about therapeutic interference. Then Dr. Kim testified. She was calm, professional, and devastating. I treated Claire for anxiety and depression stemming from unprocessed grief and family invalidation, she began. Her parents contacted me repeatedly demanding I change my therapeutic approach. The prosecutor showed the jury Dr. Kim's contact logs. They wanted you to make Claire more compliant? The prosecutor asked. Yes, they specifically used that word. They said Claire was becoming defiant and questioning family decisions, and they wanted me to discourage that behavior. What did you tell them? I explained that developing boundaries and questioning unhealthy dynamics are signs of therapeutic progress. They said that wasn't acceptable. They wanted Claire to be respectful, which in their definition meant unquestioning obedience. The prosecutor pulled up financial records. During the 3 years you treated Claire, how much did her parents pay for therapy? Dr. Kim checked the records. Approximately $6,240 per year, or $18,720 total over 3 years. And during those same 3 years, how much did they spend on their son's baseball activities? According to the financial discovery, approximately $118,000. The courtroom murmured. My parents looked furious. So they could afford therapy, the prosecutor continued. They chose to terminate it. Why? Dr. Kim pulled out her notes. Based on their statements to me, they terminated Claire's therapy because she was developing independence and questioning their control. Effective therapy was threatening their psychological dominance over their daughter. She read from her notes. Mr. Anderson stated, "Before therapy, Claire did what we told her. Now she argues. Fix that or we're done." Mrs. Anderson stated, "Claire used to be sweet and obedient. Therapy made her selfish. Make her understand family comes first." When I explained that Claire was developing healthy boundaries, Mr. Anderson said, "We don't need a therapist telling our daughter she can defy us." The prosecution played recordings. Dr. Kim had recorded the phone conversations after the threats escalated, legal in Washington state with one-party consent. My father's voice. "If you don't make Claire more compliant, we're pulling her from therapy. We're paying you to fix her, not make her worse." Dr. Kim's voice. "Mr. Anderson, Claire isn't broken. She's developing healthy—" My father. "Healthy is respecting her parents. You're turning her against us." The jury looked disturbed. Then Dr. Santos testified about my current mental health. Claire presents with complex PTSD, anxiety disorder, and major depression, all directly linked to years of emotional invalidation and therapeutic interference by her parents. What impact did terminating her therapy have? The prosecutor asked. Devastating. Claire was making excellent progress. She was processing grief, managing anxiety, developing healthy self-esteem. When therapy was abruptly terminated, she lost her primary source of emotional support and validation. Her mental health deteriorated significantly. My parents' attorney tried to argue they'd made a reasonable financial decision, but the financial records destroyed that argument. They'd had plenty of money for therapy. They'd chosen to spend it on Tyler instead. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They found my parents liable for intentional infliction of emotional distress and interference with medical care. Damages? $175,000 for past psychological harm, $125,000 for future mental health treatment costs, $50,000 for emotional distress. Total, $350,000. My parents were also ordered to pay my legal fees, $78,000. Total judgment? $428,000. They were financially devastated. They had to sell their vacation property and take out loans against their house. More importantly, the judgment validated everything I'd experienced. A jury, 12 strangers, had looked at the evidence and confirmed. My parents had abused me. They'd sabotaged my mental health treatment. They'd caused lasting psychological harm. That validation was worth more than any dollar amount. I used the settlement to pay off my student loans, fund ongoing therapy with Dr. Santos, and build an emergency fund. I also went back to see Dr. Kim for a few sessions to process the trial. "Thank you for keeping those records," I told her. "Without your documentation, I'd never have been believed." "I knew you'd need them," she said. "When parents interfere with therapy like yours did, it's rarely about money. It's about control. I documented everything so you'd have evidence when you were ready to break free." I'm 28 now. I've been in consistent therapy for 3 years. My mental health is better than it's ever been. I have healthy relationships. I'm working in a career I love. I'm engaged to a wonderful partner who validates my emotions. I haven't spoken to my parents in 2 years. They've sent letters trying to justify their actions. We were doing what we thought was best. We didn't mean to hurt you. Therapy was making you ungrateful. They still don't get it. They can't admit they sabotaged my mental health to maintain control. Tyler and I have a distant relationship. He's acknowledged our parents favored him financially, but says he didn't know it was that bad. I don't blame him. He was a kid too, benefiting from a system he didn't create. Here's what I learned. Some parents sabotage their children's mental health treatment because healthy children are harder to control. They disguise it as financial decisions or protecting you from therapists who encourage selfishness. But effective therapy helps you recognize abuse. It helps you develop boundaries. It helps you become independent. And for controlling parents, that's terrifying. If your parents discourage therapy, question your therapist's methods, or try to terminate your treatment, ask yourself why. Are they genuinely concerned about the approach? Or are they threatened by your growing independence? And if you're in therapy and your parents interfere, tell your therapist. They can document it. Those records might save you someday. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Have your parents interfered with your mental health treatment? How did you handle it? What helped you get the care you needed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, parents who truly care about your well-being support your mental health treatment. Parents who care more about control will sabotage it. I'm Claire Anderson. I'm 28 years old. My parents forced me to quit therapy, claiming they couldn't afford it while spending $118,000 on my brother. My psychologist's testimony in court proved they terminated treatment because I was becoming too independent to control. A jury awarded me $350,000 for the psychological harm they caused. But more than the money, I got validation. I got justice. And I got my mental health back. Your healing matters more than their control. Protect it fiercely.